Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there, welcome back.
Okay, so yesterday was a crazy day for us, and we got all disjointed, discombobulated, and had a lot of issues. This is a Patreon exclusive. Patreon lets you upload directly to them, but they give you a limited number of hours. Then you have to request more hours. And so that happened over the weekend where, they don't work over the weekend. So we did a Patreon exclusive, and then I was trying to link it to Rumble, but they don't link to Rumble. So that was curious. And I wasn't able to do that. And, I was going to keep it basically invisible besides the Patreons. And then I had to go and try to do that on YouTube. Basically put it up as a private YouTube video, but give a link so, the Patreons could go over. And what happened was we got a strike, as you could see, and I appealed it, and the appeal was rejected. So what happens? You won't be able to do things like upload, post, or live stream for 2 weeks. And, again, well, actually, that's if it happens again. Right now, there's 7 days. So 7 days because it's the first strike. We've been through this so many times. We've had hundreds of videos removed. Again, and it's just YT is still YT. Nothing has changed over there. Some things are expanded that you can talk on about. Other things are not. And I think they don't like this. If you could see what's on the screen right here. This is a hot topic. They always, if you look and you poke and prod a little, you can figure out what the hot topic's going to be, what the next push is going to be. And it's pretty obvious. You have Joe Rogan over here agreeing with Elon Musk that if 45 doesn't become 47, it'll be the last election. Now, on the other side, you have the left saying if 45 becomes 47, it's the last election too. And so you have both sides saying we're heading into dictatorship, fascism, whatever it is, however you want to label it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we're on our way. We've been seeing this for a very long time, and we've been talking about it. And I think it's important to just keep people kind of focused on, always be ready and understand that very slowly but surely your government is taking your freedoms away. And they're learning how difficult it is to take away the freedoms of those who have tasted freedom. But it's easier if they take it away and then our children, let's say our children don't know the same freedoms that we had, then it's easier to take it away from them. So you see how they are doing this generationally. So I think it's important that we who are a little bit older and we spent our days outside and we didn't go home until the streetlights came on, or we were out playing with our farm animals and we were out doing things, we talked to our children about these times when we were just allowed outside and we got to meet up with our friends and we got to ride our bikes in the street, and there was no rules and regulations saying otherwise. So we want our children to taste the same freedom we had. Otherwise, for them, it's just going to be a non-issue for it to be taken away because they won't even really know what the freedom is. And that's what they're working towards. And it is such a slow but methodical process. You really can't even see it. So I think that's why I want to hold on to as many freedoms as we can for as long as possible. It really is up to us.
Absolutely. All this gives me remembrances of Ordo ab chao, which is order out of chaos from the Latin. Why is Latin so important? Why do they give all the medical diagnosis and everything is done in Latin? Because to me, it traces back again. The Greco-Roman world is an extension. That culture is really an extension of Sumeria. It is an extension of, again, those that we call the Anunnaki and Igigi. So again, lux in tenebris, light from darkness, order from chaos. We're heading into a new period of chaos here. So you see here, he's posting that, this is Elon, by the way, in case you can't see it. Pennsylvania, while still leaning D, has a massive turnout on election day. If that same number vote in person for 45, he will win by about 500,000 votes. Right now, he's saying Republican turnout on election day is usually much higher than Dem. And yet the early voting that's come in has shown a lot of ours voting early, which is something that doesn't always happen. Actually, they say already they're saying again already we have like almost 80 million or about 80 million votes in, and this is the Economist's final model. It's basically projecting Kamala with 276 and Trump with 262. This is from the Economist. Again, we know take everything with a grain of salt, because I do think the results, I think it's been war gamed, and it's been war gamed in many different ways. So do they know exactly what the outcome is going to be is the question that's on a lot of people's minds. I think they have many different plans. I think it's, A, B, C, D, E, and it could literally be, A is whatever, 273 to 260, whatever, 445. And then, there's all these different possibilities that roll out. Again, at the top of this control system is artificial intelligence. That's the bottom line. And everything has been ran a million times. U.S. Supreme Court finally pipes in on election integrity, removing non-citizens from voter rolls in Virginia. Oh gosh. Yeah, the thing that's obvious is that the states are swinging ever so more in different directions, so to speak, and it's mind-boggling to see just the chaos as it's welling up. In case you missed it, Pacific Gas and Electric will shut off power on election day in 17 California counties. Oh, I wonder which ones they're going to be. Are they a little red, or are they blue? Well, I bet you they're more red. And again, who are the largest shareholders of PG&E? Vanguard, BlackRock, State Street, and again, these are red shields, just like the Weather Channel. Here you have Jamie Raskin. He's a Democrat, by the way. American attorney, law professor, and politician, serving as the U.S. representative for Maryland's 8th Congressional District since 2017. This is from Wikipedia. A member of the Dems, served in the Senate from 2007 to 2016, etc., etc. Co-chairs Congressional Free Thought Caucus. That's so funny. Born in D.C., December 1362 to, a certain persuasion. Okay. It's interesting to note, again, less than 2% of the U.S. population, but when you look at that certain tradition, that certain heritage, it holds an amazing amount proportionally of power. Amazing amount. It's so disproportionate. The proportion to the population total in the U.S., and then when you look at people that are in positions of power, senators, Congress, etc., governors, etc., 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 it's such a high percentage. There's no way in the world that could be a coincidence, is there? Statistical improbabilities, right? Yes. I think that's what Elon would say.
And then there's that. Yeah, then there's that. It's just, it's a lot of smoke and mirrors, honestly, and they do a really good job of it. And I think we cover it because we know a lot of people are still curious about it. I mean, our personal belief system is one thing, but everyone has their own personal belief system, which should be honored. When I watch this, it's like a lot of people, I mean, the truth is so many people are still wrapped up in it, and this is this is what we need to do. We need to walk through it all together. So sometimes that means that you have to flex your personal belief system one way or the other for the benefit of more.
You know, there's a tradition here. Election day begins with midnight voting in Dixville Notch. This is New Hampshire. First in the nation tradition, goes back quite a while. I forget what the date was in the 60s, I believe. And anyway, 1936. And, you know, what you have is 6 votes in this tiny little place. And 3 and 3. Is this a harbinger of what's to come? Yeah, that feels like it could be. Now, shifting away from the election, looking at tornadoes in November, you have Oklahoma's gotten battered by tornadoes like 3 concurrent days here. Other areas as well have had intense storms. People are making note of the storms. Hey, it's November 5th. It's election day. And yet, what do we got? We got a hurricane incoming. It looks like it's heading towards Louisiana. But at the same time, some of the models are showing that it could hook. In fact, one of the spaghetti models, and this, they say, should not be any higher than a Category 1 and will hit wind shear coming into landfall. And we might say, well, that's good because it's going to lower the rainfall totals. You don't want anything stalling out, and that's the thing that we need to make note of. So when you look at these spaghetti models, I really wonder about these, especially like this yellow one here, because this would put it in the position of the one that just sat there for a while and then steamrolled over and, came in again to Florida. This is going over the path basically for Helene, I believe. And then these are going to take it up into, again, Asheville area, eastern Tennessee, western North Carolina. And it's not about the winds. Most of the damage that we've seen has been the water, the tornadoes, and maybe something else. Because, I can't say without feeling I'm leaving something out. That if I say, well, all the damage I've seen in, say, again, the Asheville area is just from, the winds from a storm that made impact, 1,000 miles away or whatever it is. It's quite a ways away, hundreds of miles away. Should not have that strong of winds, but then you had the tornadoes that spurred up, and when you look at the damage, it was just incredible. By the way, in case you didn't know, Spain destroyed more than 256 dams between 2021 and 2022, 1 year period, to restore the natural course of rivers in order to comply with the UN agenda named 2030. Oh, wow. Well, Spain is getting flooded to the high heavens right now, aren't they? Oh, they sure are, and also there's a lot of strange signatures that more and more people are waking up to. Lots of strange signatures going on. Why are they picking on Spain? Well, again, there was this weapons deal that got canceled to a certain Middle Eastern nation. And these ships that people see parked in the area, too. What are those ships? Floating power stations? Huh. Curious. And, again, the king and the prime minister of Spain, they were just hammered by the average people who are blaming them for everything that's happening over there. And you know what? They're not getting any real government help. Again, it's the average person speaking up and helping, going and putting themselves out of their normal routine in order to help others. That is beautiful. So this is what Cindy has seen for this time in her visions, is that it's going to be the average person helping the average person, because the realization is you can't count on your taxpayers helping you, taxpayer dollars helping you in any way, shape, or form. And it doesn't matter if you're in Spain, the U.S., or even Switzerland, as you see here. Switzerland, rock slides, towns, they're going through the same thing over there. Oh my God, Switzerland's one of the most gorgeous places on earth. And they have this plan for those certain minute little cities. And Patty, here you go, subtropical storm now, Patty, going through the Azores in Portugal. Everywhere you look, it's the same story over and over and over. Dominican Republic, thousands of miles away in the Caribbean, looks just like Portugal, looks just like Spain, looks just like what you saw in North Carolina, Eastern Tennessee. It's the same everywhere. It's the same everywhere. And, again, there's nothing being done really by the power structure that's in place to help these people, as you don't see any real changes here. This is Swinoa, by the way, North Carolina, yesterday.
No, I mean, it is, in many ways too, though, I look at it like you don't really want to involve the power structure anyhow, because they're going to come along with their rules and regulations, and then your name is going to get put on a list, and then you're going to be lassoed into something that you don't understand. And that's what is going on with that. So I think fellow human helping fellow human, despite what they believe, what their religious status is, what their political status is, that all of that stuff needs to just go away when we are trying to help each other through something. It's like, just help another human being and realize that everything that's keeping us separate is all man-made. It's all made for a purpose, and we need to learn how to guard our hearts against that so we can keep it open where it needs to be open. I mean, this is just so tragic. This is going to take so long to clean up, if ever in our lifetimes. It's going to take so many years, but I think we need to have a good, strong stance in our hearts and be willing to help one another, even if we disagree.
Here you have Lake Susan, and there's no lake there anymore. This is up in North Carolina as well. It really feels odd out there. Obviously, there's all sorts of strange occurrences happening. Saudi Arabia, some areas are getting their first ever recorded snow. First ever recorded. Again, it's a big area, so some areas have had snow before, but what you're finding is the extremes are getting more extreme. And those maps, again, from 1500 and something, that show Africa with rivers where there's no rivers now, green and lush. It very well may be that what they tell us, it was green and lush millions of years ago, or even hundreds of thousands of years ago. No, I think, again, the technology is in place to change everything dramatically, perhaps in a single generation, completely change the landscaping. Think to terraforming, think to Star Trek and Star Wars and what can be done with planets. When you saw that, what was it, Star Killer base, I think, and of course the Death Star literally blowing up planets, that's part of our history. That is part of the galactic history, as you see these very unusual cloud patterns.
And they're everywhere. This is around the world. This is just, showing and proving that there's already this one order in place. It's already in place, and it's been in place. So everything else is just the illusion that there's anything separate. And this is really gross, but we need to look at it.
Yeah, this is touching on 6 banned foods that you can have in America, but they're banned in Europe even. And so, why? Why is this the case? Well, when you start putting 2 and 2 together, you start realizing certain things. Again, the artificial colorings, the GMOs that are so dominant in the U.S. Well, there's something else that moves things at very high speeds, and has projectiles of a leaden persuasion that's in massive numbers in the U.S. that you don't see in Europe. So there's different obstacles to the system in different places, and so they're basically looked at and dealt with in different ways. The higher your LDL, the longer you're going to live. So says this cardiologist. Yeah, and when you look to how about that whole thing with cholesterol? Did you know that blood pressure, what is the norm for blood pressure, has changed over the years? Did you know that it used to be much higher as far as what was considered normal? When you look to cholesterol, do you realize that's what protects your brain and literally feeds your brain? So when you look at this, where did delamination of the myelin sheaths come from? Why did that pop up in modern times? I remember when I worked, several decades back for Big Pharma myself, and having a discussion with the head of the pharmacy department who was running this business, and his wife was suffering from a modern day condition that has to do with delamination of the myelin sheath. And he said, yeah, it's in his opinion, everything that he's looked, it's environmental, and it's a byproduct of our modern day society, and that includes absolutely what this article is talking about. Again, cholesterol has been given a very, very, they put a black hat on cholesterol, but it has a good benefit when it comes to inflammation. And aren't we all under inflammatory response syndrome? Yeah, absolutely. Because everything in this society is inflaming us. It's giving us allergic responses, and things like dementia and Alzheimer's, ALS, all these things that we see coming out. These are all modern day. And the cancer epidemic as well is brought on by, you have to make up your mind, what you think is really going on. But obviously it's a massive overload of our immune system that cannot get rid of toxins fast enough. How much would it cost to eradicate homelessness in the U.S.? About $53 billion. How much would it cost to eradicate hunger in the U.S.? $25 billion. How much would it cost to make education free? $80 billion. How much money has the U.S. sent to that nation state in the Middle East in total? Over $250 billion. Okay, so we could have sent money there, or we could have eradicated homelessness, hunger, and provide free education. It'd be nice if that education was actually not indoctrination as well.
Mm-hmm. And thank you to the Amish from Lancaster, Pennsylvania, who are donating their time to build cabins for Christ in North Carolina. This appears to be a good one. I did talk to somebody out there, but he hadn't heard of it just yet. That doesn't mean that this isn't going on. I would definitely do your due diligence, make the phone calls, do the things. If you're going to donate, there is one person who is on the ground in the area of Asheville and Clyde, in that area, and she said Samaritan's Purse is a good place to donate. But of course, if this is operational and this is up and running with the Amish, I think this is a wonderful idea. However, when the fires were going through New Mexico, and they were building little homes for people in New Mexico, the controllers came in and they made it illegal. So they didn't want people on their land. They didn't want people to have homes. And I don't know if that's going to happen in this case or not.
The controllers are losing control. That's the bottom line. And, everybody that's under the power of the controllers and doing the bidding, again, gosh, it just reeks like, what is thy bidding, my master? This is exactly what we're facing. Bend the knee to the Dark Lord of the Sith. Who is that Dark Lord of the Sith ultimately? We don't ever see the true Dark Lords, when you get down to it. But if you did, they would actually look not too far off from Darth Sidious and his cousins, George and, the Pope. Here you go. If you don't know, well, hopefully you'll remember this. 4-digit code on the produce thing, 4021. 4-digit code with 3 or 4 conventionally grown. So that means that there's going to be pesticide residue. 5-digit code with eight digits, genetically modified, avoid at all cost. In my mind, that's my mind. 5-digit code starting with a 9 is organic.
Go with the nines. Go with the nines. I mean, our bodies need all the help we can get, and sometimes you have to go to a store that sells all organic, and you know that they're selling all organic because they have these other little things, these other little tricks of the trade they do to sell their produce if it's not organic, and that's just not fair. You probably actually want to talk to the grocer that you're shopping at, those grocers that know everything, and they know about the inventory and what's coming in and where it's coming from. Just as close to hand to mouth food as you can possibly get is best.
Absolutely. And why shouldn't you buy shredded cheese? Now that's Lucerne cheese that he's holding up there. There was a time when I bought that brand occasionally, only organic. And when you look at it, look and see if there's any anti-caking agents, because some of those anti-caking agents have been associated with the big C. Yeah, absolutely. And if it doesn't have organic on the label, you definitely can have steroids and hormones and antibiotics and everything else in there. Everything will eventually make its way to you. Again, if you're eating just regular old store-bought eggs, those chickens are eating GMO feed and whatever else. And if they're unhappy because they're packed into a 1x1 square, 1 foot by 1 foot square, you're also eating their misery. So, free range, organic, make sure that they're not, taking in the bad stuff themselves, because that comes to you. And also when you go back to the other one that we were looking at, one of the items on that list of the 6 was chicken. So be very careful with chicken. We ourselves never eat chicken from any of the big stores. We pay a heck of a lot more for local product that's grown and raised here locally. And there's a big difference too. It even does taste different when you get it. That literally has been out there and not pumped up with everything, and the allergic response that so many people's systems have, and we all have it. We're all faced with it, because even if you don't eat anything for the day and you're still breathing in the fake clouds air, there's so much coming into your body all the time. Intermittent fasting, I think, is a great practice. I really, really do. Think it's fabulous. If you could eat in a 6 to 8 hour window, awesome. 4 to 6 hour window, awesome. We were having a discussion yesterday. It was a busy day with clientele as far as the life coaching that we do, the health coaching, the spiritual coaching, the energy work. And some people are catching on that it really, really helps to do fasting or intermittent fasting. But you still need nutrients, and that's another key, because we've gone that route, and we both have. And then what happens is we don't get a lot of nutrients in our food nowadays. Again, a tomato from now, any vegetable, any fruit today is typically going to have far less nutritional value to it than something from 100 years ago. So we are, as a society, taking in too many calories, and we're not getting enough nutrition. And that is a conundrum.
I think you need to look at it, or the calories or the chemicals, or how many chemicals are you taking in, and you find that on the back of the bag on the ingredients. And if you look back there and there's a whole bunch and you can't pronounce them, you're taking in chemicals. Your body is having to process chemicals. That is turning your vessel into something that's not going to feel well. So diet is so very, very critical. And, with this whole thing that happened yesterday, it gave Mike and I a minute to refocus on, what is it we do for people, and we can branch out in so many different directions when it comes to health and wellness and healing. It all truly comes together, but then you have to know the other little details too, like you know, how to exercise, what to exercise. I mean, by the time you get up there a little bit and over the hill, you've probably had some surgeries, you've probably had some owies, you've probably had some issues, and you need to know how to take care of that, and you need to know how to work around it. I mean, we're all very, very different. For one person, intermittent fasting might be wonderful, but what if your metabolism is so, like my metabolism is so super fast, for me to go half the time Mike can go is like my intermittent fasting. So I can only do so much intermittent fasting in accordance to what intermittent fasting is. It's like I can do about half of that because my metabolism is different. But I think we have the knowledge and the know-how and the understanding to help people get a grasp on everything that has gone on in their life. But you got to sit and talk to people. You have to get a background. You need to know, like, where are the injuries? And then you need to be able to work around them and to work with them. It's like your body, you know, becomes a something where you really have to just, you have to be good to it, but you also, there's disciplines that we need to put in place so we don't continually go downhill. I mean, life is worth living, but if you're just constantly putting chemicals in your body, you're not going to have that quality of life. I mean, so many people want to travel when they get older, but you can't do that if you're not taking care of yourself. You can't take care of yourself if you don't know how. And I think that's what we have to offer between the two of us. We have a lot of knowledge.
Yeah, and I think we need to do a little video to let people know who we are a little bit more, you know, in so many ways, in our backgrounds as well. I mean, as we've mentioned things here and there, and we will work on that. You know, I don't know. To me, I see structure that I keep getting like mollusks. Like this is some sort of big clamshell or something. But, you know, again, what is this? Sphinx Rocks Katoomba. Well, I think we need to look into this more, but I just wanted to show this. There's a lot of things, obviously, that show, as he says, this is not formed naturally. This was melted, and you know it. There was a war with highly advanced technology, and you know it. Well, yeah, absolutely. The wars of the gods are very, very real. They're told in all our mythologies. Yeah, at the same time, too, there were giant beings that have walked on the same ground that we're walking on right now that were enormous in size. Yeah, absolutely. And when we look to who really was living in the Americas, look at Montana's capital, right? This was completed, they say, in 1889, demolished in 1946. 100 heated rooms, 30,000 square feet, largest pool in the world at that time, stained glass windows, Moorish towers, electric lights glittering like jewels. This was in Montana in 1890s. Well, something's wrong here, you know. Again, this doesn't really add up. I mean, 1890s? I mean, and let's go back to when they say it was built. They said it was, well, you know, 1889. I don't know. I mean, are you serious? You know, at a time when we were still, you know, using horse-drawn carts? Come on. You know, it doesn't fit. There was a society here that was very advanced. And here's the thing. Well, how about the people living in tribal situations? You had all of it. We have all of it today. You know, again, we have tribes living in the Amazon and in Africa, in Southeast Asia, in certain places. We have people that are living just like people lived thousands of years ago, and yet we still have people at the same time living in places like Dubai. You know, it's all that goes on concurrently. We had extraterrestrials living amongst us. We watched them come and go all the time. And there was a comment where somebody said, you know, again, all this weather change is just simply the Tonga eruption. It's just Tonga eruption. And evidence that a redo happened 2,000 years ago. redos happen all the time. And here, this is saying about 200. About 200 years ago, there was a big redo. Yeah, that's more accurate. It's ongoing, but then there's peaks and valleys. So what you might be thinking happens only every 12,000, every 6,000, every 3,000, 2,500 years. No, it's constant. It's pretty much constant. And, in fact, absolutely, history is completely a lie. It's a total fabrication. So do I think it's just a Tonga event doing all this? No, but not at all. It's not just Tonga. And I think you'd have to be sleeping if you think it's all just Tonga. You're still asleep. It's time to smell some smelling salts there. But also, Tonga was technologically driven. That's what we have gotten to. That was technology, and it is contributing. It's absolutely contributing. Yeah, that was far beyond anything that was expected. But it's the technology. The technology is alien. It's not technology that we would per se, if this was what most of the sheeple believe, and presidents are making all the decisions, et cetera, et cetera. And it's really all the UFOs are just our military craft. Well, again, we've been able to see military craft that has both on it, reptilians and actual humans. This is Jim Morrison, and an interview that was copied on a decade-old, thrown-away VHS tape. He has a view of the future forming in 1969, and he talks about music being created just through machines, and he mentions tapes and about how you'll have one person making and creating music that sounds like it's a group of 4 or 5 or more. And the reality is, when I saw this, Cindy said, "Oh, he's channeling." Yeah, absolutely. But when like Jim Morrison's history is very, very sad. Obviously, he died very young. He died very, very young. Do you know his father was the U.S. Navy Admiral George Stephen Morrison? He was brought up on military bases, and there was a legacy behind it. Oh, yeah. Everybody that we see out there, there's a story behind them. By the way, Jim Morrison, Cindy could see his soul is not doing well. It's still tormented and still stuck.
Yeah, I mean, there's a sadness and a darkness to it, and that's unfortunate. It is. It's just stuck. And when I looked a little further, there's some realizations that he's not able to come to just yet. There's some growth that it seems like he's afraid to step into a higher frequency. There's something holding him back, definitely. But I do think that is what happens to so many very gifted people that are channelers. And this was a fun example of channeling, because he can obviously see, but he's just lacking the appropriate words for the things, He just knows to call them machines or tapes or recording devices, but he can still see the technology. And that's a struggle I myself and other people run into, other channelers, is we don't have the appropriate language to describe what we can see out there, what we can see in the future. For the type of technologies I see, I know that they sound crazy, but they are there because I can feel them. This guy can feel the future. And, ultimately in the 3D, we're still past, present, future anyhow. So he's just feeling an energy and doing his best to describe it.
Yeah, and as you see here, we talked about the hip-hop movement was really an alphabet soup creation. Same thing with the hippie movement. But what were they doing? They're controlling the narrative, because they knew that there was energy incoming, especially in the 60s. There was this wave of energy that started to come in, and that bigger wave in the 80s. And now we're being blasted with energy that's completely transformative. They knew these waves were coming. So as people awaken, they have plans in place to take them down into these rabbit holes that lead to nowhere. And they are rabbit holes that literally lead to nowhere. When we've looked at these people that are celebrities and stars, like David Bowie and Jim Morrison and so many others, you want to talk about tormented souls. I mean, what we have seen from friends, and I've had like 5 friends that have had, either near-death experiences or really clinically dead, literally clinically dead. And, they've all found nothing but love on the other side, nothing but love. But, the price of joining this system that runs this world is very heavy, because again, you're disconnecting yourself from the love on the other side.
Mm-hmm. You definitely don't want to do that. You don't want to shut down the heart chakra. You want to always look at nature with amazement and wonder, and you want to keep those energies open. Like this guy, he looks pretty open to handle whatever he needs to.
Yeah. And you're looking at, part of the lineage of a Bigfoot, a Sasquatch. Yeah, absolutely. Look at the cone-shaped head. Well, why is it cone-shaped? Because, this was one of the first Anunnaki and Negigian, Anunnakian really, experiments here on Earth with trying to create a good slave species, because gorillas are monstrously strong. Deadlift 1,800 pounds. They could literally crush a crocodile's skull. 4 to 9 times stronger than the average human male. Yeah. They show how strong we could be. Now, why can cats, jump from 10, 12, 15 feet and they land perfectly every time? Chimpanzees, again, are not bigger than me, and yet they're so much stronger than me. It's ridiculous. Like 120-pound chimp is so much stronger than the average 200-pound male. It's because, again, we're not really from here, and the reality is too, ultimately, this whole planet was reseeded after that massive cataclysm, using technology that we literally see in Star Wars when you're talking about like a Death Star type of thing, storm. What do they call it? Death Killer base storm. I forget what it was in the new rendition. But yes, absolutely. Gorillas, their DNA was taken and was also modified with different extraterrestrial DNA to give us what we call Bigfoot, Sasquatch, and Yeti. And there are differences in those two. And I almost don't want to put Yeti in that mix. I don't know why. But it's something we'll delve into more in the future. Listen to that little voice that tells you when to do this, when to do that. Now, of course, be careful, and I wouldn't recommend necessarily listening to the voices if you're under some sort of substance. It's mind-altering, especially if we are talking alcohol, which pulls you down into a lower frequency, as does most of, I would say, pretty much everything you're going to find with pharma. They're going to pull you into a very, very low frequency. You want to be clear in these times, and you could find your pot of gold. This little guy found his pot of gold.
Yes, he's just chewing and eating, and it's really, really yummy, and he's having a good life, and we all deserve a little piece of that.
Absolutely. He's living his best life. Nature will provide. Look to nature to balance your energies. It's all about balance, guys.
Source bless and namaste.
Namaste.